We are live.
Salam alaikum and greetings to you all. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri Foundation, I welcome you to another conversation, the topic of which today is the Quran, faith, and life. Today, political commentator and educator Syed Haider Mehdi engages with Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, who has spent the last 40 years of his life devoted to sharing the gifts of self-knowledge as filtered through the Islamic heritage, through books, talks, and platforms such as this. The Quran is, of course, central to the lives of all Muslims and has been the wellspring of Islamic wisdom throughout the centuries. But contemporary life often poses formidable challenges to those of us who aspire to live by its teachings. Sometimes it seems almost impossible to follow its moral precepts and prescriptions, let alone the legal ones. And it is easy to get lost in translation into the modern era. So without further ado, I hand over to Haider Mehdi, who will be engaging with Shaykh Fadhlalla on the Quran, faith, and life. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mona. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Thank you very much for being here today once again. Sheikhna, some of these questions are very basic. I'll start from the most fundamental question that people ask, both Muslims and non-Muslims, but a lot of Muslims. This is really about why were we created, and why am I here? What is my purpose? What is akhirah? You know, the most fundamental question of when person is reflecting. Please, could you dwell on that?
There could be no better way that it has happened. There could be no more perfect way than as you call creation and the creator and the created. There's only one. And for the one to be at one with the one has to have this appearance of a distance or otherness, someone else. So the Quran also challenges us. Look back again, can you find any fault in anything that you have looked at? So we are, from the beginning, driven to know what it is, how is it, why is it? So you come to know that it is. All of the other things were just covers up on it. It just is. And all of the other attempts by a great awakened being, and whether religious or otherwise, tens of thousands of prophets, messengers, and others, all of them are trying to convey to their people at that culture and at that time that you have to accept. Once you accept the moment is eternal. Once you accept, then there is no separation between the question and the questioner. No you and it, and the higher and lower, and this life and afterlife. There is life. Life is forever, boundless, not subject to a specific place or movement in time. So if you're truly, genuinely ready, then you are in the moment. And the moment is eternal. Moment doesn't stop. Becomes next moment, has emerged from the last moment. All of these are mental gymnastics because the mind is in space and time. So the so-called you and I experience space and time. But the real you, which is your soul or your ruh or the plug of life in you, is timeless. It's eternal. That's why we're yearning for that. All the time we're asking, is it forever? Is it going to last? Is it reliable? Is it real? All of us are seeking security, whereas the mind is in a zone of total insecurity. Everything changes. So-called the human beings, we are born into a zone of utter insecurity. Nothing is ever certain. As soon as you think you've got it, you've lost it. Because there is no it other than that which is perpetual, which belongs to another zone. You can call it the quantum zone, you can call it the divine precinct, give it any name you want. The soul is from the eternal zone, from the absolute, enabling the temporary, the short term, the ego, the so-called you and I to function. And all the time asking, demanding, hoping for the eternal, permanent, the constant. The constant is all what it is. And that's my soul. And I only know it through the inconstant, the changing, the shadow. I can only have a glimpse of the sun through the shadow. The sun itself cannot be perceived. The light is too powerful. The voltage is too high. Doesn't allow anything else other than it. There is only haqq, it. So that's...
Sheikh, so if I were to dwell on this a little and say that there is this duality of the self and the soul, and the nafs and the ruh, and then the question is, why was I created in this form of nafs and ruh? Why this duality, and then what is the purpose of this creation that he created?
The issue is the I. Who is the I?
Yeah, who is
the I? Is a combination of an eternal light, ever perfect, ever constant, beyond the mind's ability to comprehend, and its shadow, its earthly shadow. And this is how the amazing combination of the eternal, that highest level of consciousness, pure consciousness, eternal consciousness, connects with the temporary, momentary consciousness. Is the connection between heavens and earth, is the connection between the absolute and the finite and the limited. That is why we are middle people as a human being. I am a combination of an eternal light, cosmic, divine, sacred, and a temporary flash of it appearing from birth and ending that little flash by death. In order for it to see the truth of that eternal oneness. So this is the ultimate gift, where that which is temporary, which has no substance of its own or sustainable oneness, is to witness the absoluteness. That's all.
So the purpose then, Sheikh, now of creation, as you call it, from this eternal cosmic to the temporary flash between birth and death, is really to see the truth of the eternal and the oneness of this of the creator, and this is really a gift to us.
It is a preparation, as a glimpse, seeing the absolute truth. So there is no you, there is no illusion. You are struck dumb and dead. There is only it, in preparation for leaving the body. Because when you leave the body and the mind, there is only it. So you and I and everyone have to be prepared in being awestruck, completely frazzled by the immensity of Allahu Akbar, of the intensity of that power, in preparation for the time for leaving the body and the mind. So this is only a tiny little glimpse, a sample of what you and I and everybody else will experience after death. So the truth will dawn upon all of us after death, whether we like it or not. If you have been prepared, then your death is a natural, beautiful flow from the murky confusion of dualities into the wonderment and perfection of the fusion of oneness. That's all. That's why everybody will wake up. So there is no point in going around trying to shake people out of their daydream or their sleepwalking. 99.9% of them are all sleepwalkers, causing havoc and damage to themselves and everybody else. It will end. It will end with the death of the person, or the end also with the extinction, which I think we are well into now. So what is the hurry? The design is there. The only thing we can do, if we are efficient, is to accept it. And that's the meaning of Islam. Accept the moment. There's nothing you can do anymore when the moment has occurred. You can't change it anymore. So if you accept it, then you will be in wonderment as to how much you were in distraction, how much you were in a rush, how much you were covered by the veils of your ego. That's all. When you have done that, then you are in this world joyfully, enjoyably, seeing it for what it is, avoiding that which causes you harm, because you love yourself, and you love yourself means you love your soul. You love your soul meaning you're obsessed with life. That means you're obsessed with the life giver. Simple.
So Sheikh, now this is so beautiful. I'm reminded of my military days in the PMA. We went for training for 2 years to be prepared to become whatever we had to become. So what you're saying is this is like a kind of a training ground to help us get a small, tiny, microcosmic glimpse of what awaits us as conscious beings in the hereafter. Am I correct in understanding that?
Correct. And the hereafter is here now, because the hereafter is timeless. It's not subject to space and time as our conditioned consciousness is. The hereafter is forever. It's not being caught in this little capsule of space and time, beginning and end, good and bad, duality, plurality, multiplicity, all of that. So, and what we are experiencing in this womb of the worldly life, short, is actually has come from that zone. It is a limited version of that limitless zone. That's all. It's a practice run. So as we yield to it, we joyfully accept acceptance and yield to it and be liberated from the illusion of having power, ability, choices, and all of that. This is childish. You give a child a choice, but once you know what is appropriate for you, out of 50 choices, you only choose the one that is not going to cause you any regrets, harm, damage, whatever. And you don't look back again. So you are present. That's why if you are truly beyond wisdom and having acquired wisdom and learned it, then you judge the moment correctly. So you don't go back and forth all the time with regrets and all kinds of other, issues that are to do with it, such as, guilt and all of the other. You're present. If you're present, you will repeat fully, you will repeat what you did if you come back to it 100 times, because you're present. So you can't change it. But if you were not, then you say, oh, I was taken aback. I was in a rush. Please excuse me, which is fine. It's a practice run so that you are fully present. And death takes you away from any possibility of being distracted to absolute presence, the presence of your own soul or spirit or the divine in you. Finished. Job done. So you congratulate anybody who's dying. Then you're onto it. Good luck to you. Maybe I will be given the same choice one day. Without being too disturbed by silly creatures around me who feel sorry for themselves and they say, no, we are missing you. Who is missing? Why do you miss that? You don't. Your soul is the master and the light in you. So what are you looking for? It's the divine presence in you. So what are you missing? It's the animal in you, the human in you, the one who is journeying into this short passage of few years, which is minuscule compared to even if you take life on earth, which is few billion years. But if you take creation from beginning, even becomes smaller and smaller, it's insignificant. It's a tiny little blip that you're born and you die. And if you don't wake up to the constant light in you, you're all the time frightened and in despair and insecure from the passage of time. And nothing you do is going to help you. No matter how much you accumulate power, wealth, ability, you're going to lose it. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. At all times, every human being will lose it all. So what are you gaining? The ultimate gain that is not losable is the knowledge that the real you is a spirit or a soul that has none of these comings and goings and changes within space and time. It is constant. It is the veil on it, which is my ego or myself or my human identity, that changes. I can't deny that identity either. It is actually the door to my higher reality. So I have to accept I am egotistic. I want everything more than anybody. I want to be loved. In fact, if I allow it, I try to pretend even to be a God, because God's light is in me. If I am not groomed properly, I can fall into that trap. You see, as pharaonic trap. Am I not your Lord? I am the God. See, that's it.
So, Sheikh, now then, I think, and this is not mental gymnastics, please pardon me. I think the question then is, why would we create it in this dual form? Why would we create it as an extension of pure light, so we could just continue to experience this eternal, beautiful, divine consciousness, and without this interim blip of the birth and the death and the choices then we have to make and be victims of our baser desires, I think.
You have to qualify for that vastness, perfection of oneness. And the qualification for that is to suffer from duality and turn away from it by choice, by intelligence. There is the usual intelligence of being clever. You can get to the tree and get the fruits before the others, or catch this or that, or the job, or the money, or whatever. So this is outer animal intelligence. And then comes higher intelligence and higher intelligence. And then there is emotional intelligence. You don't succumb to it. You realize, of course, I'm emotionally connected to those whom I loved, my mother, and this and that. But, it's another strand of connectedness. And then, there is a higher connectedness to that. So it becomes spiritual intelligence. And you give it names, and people make seminars and all kinds of funny things out of all of these. Now, these are the, if you like, conditions that through your own intelligence, determination, and the divine, if you like, grace, you suddenly see oneness, 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 oneness. And then you realize all of these dualities emanating from the one, returning to the one. And it's wonderful. It's a beautiful cover. It's a beautiful hijab, if you like, for that most magnificent perfection of beauty and majesty, and that which we call the face of your Lord, with more metaphors. It is that. So once you are in it and doing it and have done it, then you can't improve on it. The Quran challenges you. If you are given all the power, would you do it differently? That is it. It is to enable us by hope, by having recognized the good and the bad and the up and down is not going to give you stability. You turn away from that and realize the oneness is what's guiding you, and come back as a human, if you like, with fully, if you like, potentized and armed and given the grace of seeing it through the lens of the one. So whenever you are confused by choices, I wait. I don't want to do a wrong choice. I love me so much. I don't want to regret. I don't want to have guilt. Give me a minute. Don't bamboozle me. Wait. So I said, well, I really still can't choose because emotionally I am disturbed. I have been insecure. I've lost my job this morning and this and that. So I need to wait a little bit before, otherwise I'll make a stupid mistake. That's why if you want, you go to places where they try to abuse you in a sense and entice you. There's a lot of noise, a lot of music at such a pitch that you want to run away because you're going to lose your eardrums. So, but that's how it is, you see. So you are caught and you make a mistake. That's why you have to take your pace, touch the zone of timelessness, and that's higher wisdom. With that comes perfect judgment. You'll be saying the right thing, seeing the right thing, expressing the right thing at the right time. That's it. Then that's the real you, the spirit in you, the divine in you. That's it.
So Sheikh, now coming back to the what you originally said is that this is a test. You have to qualify to be able to experience this beautiful zone and of timelessness. I think the thought that arises is because we do not have a framework in our minds of understanding timelessness, that gives a rise to questioning the very act of creation. This is what the atheists say, right? That this is all just a question of chance, and stardust coming together, and somewhere some spark, and then the single cell, and then the multiple cell, and all that. And I think that's where humankind struggles, where they do not have any frames of reference to relate to an unseen creator, or so they think.
We have to accept a basic principle that there is nothing ever that is you can call created or in creation unless it is two, unless it's one of two. The Quran stipulates that in so many different ways. The most important one is I created anything that's created, it is in pairs, twos. So the same thing comes with issues like you are now bringing about. Why am I created? In this zone of consciousness that you are referring to, we question, we grapple, we philosophize, we pontificate, and so on and so on. Now, this is only one zone of my consciousness. Emerging from the huge, huge zone of pure consciousness, accessing that will not be through my minute, confused brain. It is accessed through totally giving up any movement of within my cells, within my neuron system, within my anything. You have to stop it. And that is why the Quran says you have only been created here in order to salvage and save yourself through worship. What is worship? It's to giving up all of the other transitory things that you and I like sometimes and also end up disliking, and so on and so on and so on. So you have to give up this zone of mind, body, my preferences, and so on. It doesn't mean you must have no likes or dislikes, but they are minimal. I prefer less salt. That's fine. But you have to be able at any time stop, your thoughts. Stop the idea of who you are. Switch it off whilst you are still alive and still active and still corpus mentis. It is to enter the zone of the higher consciousness, supra-consciousness, supreme consciousness, divine consciousness. You have to stop the lower consciousness. You can't say, I want God consciousness. No. Stop having animal consciousness. Stop having competitive consciousness. Stop having fear of, provision consciousness. Stop all of that. It's no, no, no. And then through grace, you can't condition it. You can't, demand it. Through grace, you're giving glimpses of supreme consciousness. Once that happens, then you become addicted, if you like, to the worship of the infinite. You now become in every way obsessed with pure life, not life as has been conditioned in you and in me and in him and her. You are obsessed with pure life, eternal life, divine life. You're obsessed. We are obsessional creatures. That's why we get obsessed with love of money, power, sex, or whatever it may be. We are obsessional. If you are not obsessed with the absolute, you will sink into the septic tanks of all kinds of other things. Obsessional. And we start childish life with being obsessional. You take on to a game, to a whatever, maybe even whatever is individual or collective, a football or whatever, you become obsessional. It's understandable, but you come out of that and you become obsessional with something else. But because your nature is obsessional with that which is none else other than it, pure, sacred, eternal light from which every life emanates.
Sheikhna, thank you. Sheikhna, I think as I was hearing you, this is so wonderful to see you bridge this gap between dunya and our, natural instinctive tendencies, transcending onto this pure consciousness of the deen. And I think people struggle with that. People really, really struggle in reconciling the instinctive desires of the dunya, through the ego and the nafs, and the reality of life, and the passion and the conflicts and the desires, the wealth and money and power and exploitation and all that, and transcending from that base level while living here in this dunya to a much purer, higher level of consciousness. I think that is the challenge, Sheikhna.
Not enough. They're not suffering enough. They're really not suffering enough. They're not confused enough. You must reach a point that truly from within every cell in you gives up. Say, I can't solve it. Once you give up, then that which is up will come to help you down. That's all. There is still love of power, love of money, fear of insecurity, whatever it is you have inherited genetically, otherwise, culturally, through religion, through anything. Not enough. You must suffer enough that you really see it as that which is going to scorch you. So you won't go near it. Then the question of money becomes just a means to provide for you whatever is going to help you to have less pain, no hunger, some shelter. That's it. And it's enough. You will be hard put to find people in this world who say, thank you, it's enough. Because of greed. Now, why is there a greed? Because your soul contains the entire cosmic lights. So the so-called I, its shadow, have greed for that. It never will stop. So my greed can never be contained. The ego's greed cannot be in any way satisfied until by grace you touch upon the perfection and the absoluteness of the light in you. Once that's touched you, then you don't want anything else. Nothing else will satisfy.
And Sheikhna, that is the question. How does that light touch you? How does one experience this state of pure drunkenness in the love of the one, so that you forget everything else and you just keep asking for more?
We have not suffered enough, that's all. That's why God sends us the viruses, these things, and all the dreadfulness, the 10, 15 main strands of our so-called life on earth, whether it is connectedness, whether it is family life, tribal life, national life, religious life, political life, academic life. We're suffering at every level more and more and more. So the divine grace is doing it. So we have to really be honest. You cannot hardly find anybody who's completely honest as to what went on in their head. No, we hide and we hide and we hide. That's why most people are afraid in meeting someone whom they think can read their mind. They say, I don't want that. It's dangerous. I want to hide. I want to appear well. I want to appear nice. Don't take a photograph until I look myself in the mirror. Why? Because subconsciously, your soul is perfect. So you want to have your outer appearance to also be reasonably acceptable, semi-perfect. We are mimics. The self, the ego mimics the amazing qualities of the soul. That's all. Once you see that, you are joyful. You see everything is done. Everything is already there, including the fact that I don't want to go into that fire, into this suffering, into this stupidity. I've done it many times and became a habit, because anything occurs, want to repeat itself. That's why we're habitual. We make the same mistake over and over. So you see that when life touches anything, that thing becomes obsessed with life and wants to continue, including our mistakes. Once you see it in its fullness, then you truly enter the wonderment that it could not have been created more perfectly at all of these different levels. And then you say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah.
So, Sheikh, how does one who is living in this dunya, he's born or she's born, has to earn money to survive, have shelter, create a family, there are relationships, there's personal achievements, there's relationships with family, friends, colleagues, all that happening, struggles, and then there is this higher purpose. And you're so bogged down, people are so bogged down in the here and the now and the struggle of survival, and many of them really barely having food to eat or just barely surviving. How do you help them understand that there is this beautiful higher pure consciousness, the one only, when this person is saying, I can barely survive?
Who is it, this entity you refer to as struggling to survive? Who is it?
This I.
Who is it? Who is the I? How did the I come about?
By the Creator, of course.
How did the I get this illusion of its being independent in this life? Where is it from? The I is a shadow of a light that is eternal. Your soul doesn't struggle. Your soul is ever alive. It is wrong identity, wrong direction, wrong education, and stupidity. So you pay a price because of the shadow. And struggle, don't struggle. What happens? You die. You're going to die anyway. So it's not a big deal. Die joyfully, cheerfully, that you know that you are the soul and the soul is forever. So what is the big issue? I myself have come across people through poverty, through difficulty, through illness, have really died with a smile on their face. But through this emerging, if you like, materialistic so-called struggle more, we ended up having the whole world struggling on top of each other, causing more damage to everybody else without getting anywhere. That's all. Accumulating more and more and creating havoc on earth and the surrounding atmosphere around the earth.
So, Sheikh, then moving forward, how does one, as an individual and as a society, how does one create a better, more just society? I mean, if you look around us, there is poor governance all over. In the Muslim countries, so-called Muslim countries, they're at the bottom of the pile. They're economically, they are in the boondocks, and yet they profess to be Muslims, and their azan coming from mosques. There are more mosques in Pakistan, they say, and more churches in Nigeria, and they're the two countries that unfortunately have very high levels of corruption at the highest levels of governance.
Well, you may sound as though you're accusing God for having gone wrong or done it wrongly. Allah says in the Quran, you through your own stupidities and wrongness, you will suffer. And I have not caused you any difficulty, punishment. Allah says, Inna Allah yuridu bikum al-yusra. Allah wants for you an ease of travel, of movement, of journey. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah does not want for you hardship and difficulty. And so that means we are off the, if you like, the beam that is intended for us. We are doing it stupidly because we become too materialistic. We don't accept that life here is in preparation for after death. Without the love and acceptance of akhirah, of the hereafter, nothing will work. The Quran repeatedly tells you that if people do not believe in the akhirah, believe meaning that that's the torch of light that guides them, you cannot do anything. It will only get worse. This is where we are. So we have been moving swiftly into darkness, into worse darkness and more darkness. That's all. Because in truth, what do I need? I only need to know that I am an eternal light. Once I know that, then there'll be minimum effort needed, if at all, to sustain me. And even if I don't sustain myself, what's the big deal? The body is rotting anyway. At all times, I'll be losing, I'll be dying. So why not now? What's wrong with that? Cheerfully accept it and with a nice smile. That's it. You are oozing, you are decaying. So what's wrong with it? Die younger. That's, if you look at the whole thing from its totality, from its point of, if you like, the divine inception origin, then you find none of these tragedies are real tragedies. They are natural occurrences. Nature is that. Whatever exists in nature will also leave nature along a pattern that is already there. So it's either with acceptance, with a smile, or with rejection, or screaming and so on. The Quran describes those who don't want to leave this world. He says one leg goes around the other leg so that the soul doesn't leave the body. The soul is a divine entity taking a short journey here on earth. And it is by its grace that the so-called I or you catches all of these emotional frameworks of snaps, and it's good, it's bad. It's for us to practice a bit. We're given a little bit of, if you like, of that divine quality of participating. So that's all, a little participation. Otherwise, every one of us wants to be a pharaoh. Everybody has to be regarded as God. We're given a tiny little chance. If you don't take permission, and if you don't recalibrate with the light of God in you, your own soul, each one of us will end up being the most horrific despot. That's why there is, look, with this lockdown, everybody was running around causing their mischief in a wider sense. With the lockdown, it became more domestic. That's why domestic violence throughout the world has increased manyfold during this lockdown, because people are angry. They're upset. They've been promised you can do anything through your money, through your position, from your you can do anything. No, they can do nothing. They're all stuck in the house, small place, whatever. They have to even work from a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, whatever, and it's horrendous. There's violence and violence. Why? Because of the unfulfilled promise that your ego had been given. So therefore, you blame the politicians. Not that they're not blameworthy, all of them are. What about the academician? What about the medical? We are all muddling through as human beings without any clear map or a sketch as to who you are. And what are you trying to get rid of? You're trying to get rid of your greed, all the love to accumulate. What if that doesn't happen? What if? Then you are living in fear and anxiety throughout and causing havoc around you. That's all. I think it would be a wonderful practice if each one of us has to, for a week or a month, every now and then, take all their belongings with a little, shopping cart, put it all in there, and for that week, you have to move, every day in a new bed somewhere. So you see how much we have accumulated. In case of what? You're hanging on air. What we have deceived ourselves is that the entire zone of human experience is uncertain. And yet, the so-called I looking for certainty. Certainty is my soul. It's not myself. The soul is ever certain. So stop the self. Stop being in that zone of uncertainty, and you will experience certainty. And it will continue.
And Sheikhna, this really is you make it sound so simple, but really if one thinks about it, is that simple. If one has total, utter, unquestionable belief in the Creator and the One, complete, without qualification, not an iota of doubt, then everything is very simple. Then all this dunya and desires vanish. But I think they perpetuate in behavior because there is lack of belief. There is a doubt in one's mind that there is a creator, and after that there is going to be an akhirah, and after that there's going to be accountability. Because if one believed in that, then one would not be doing what one does.
You see, unless belief leads to experience, is not good enough. We have not been educated. We have not been taught. Our parents didn't do it. They didn't know it. All the other people, and also the so-called most of the religious people, they try to bring a certain measure of behavioral, if you like, boundaries and acceptability. Otherwise, there will be even more chaos. But unless hope had become a scintillating realization of the ever perfect presence, it won't work.
Exactly.
They didn't know. Nobody knew. They just know a little bit. And also, there wasn't much time. Until 2 generations ago, people had to struggle to run around in order to keep alive. But now we have a lot of leisure. A lot of problem arises because of leisure and boredom. People have a lot of time on their hand. Food is available. This is available. Ease. So we have not been trained. We have not had living examples of people who are enjoying this world without being afflicted by the world, being in this world without being overwhelmed by the world. Don't deny the world. The world is a prelude, the gateway to the absolute, to the infinite, to the hereafter. But we have not been trained. We have not had tutors as such. So we had to have a skill in order to make money. Once you make money, then you need more money and a bigger house, bigger what if, more insurance policies. And we all die outwardly stuffed with miserable stuff that wasn't needed, inwardly bereft and full of misery. That's the whole story. It's not until there are major breakdowns, not until we really realize, look, we have caused all of the havoc on earth, the global warming, the miseries, we have caused it collectively through comfort and ease, then comes the ultimate disease. So that's it. Say no, very few people will say no, thank you. That's why everything is enticing so-called poor populations. This is free for you. Come do more and you buy 2 and you get 3rd free. What do I do with the 3rd? I don't need 3. I don't even need 2. No. More. Give it to others. You are a generous person. Trick upon trick upon trick, all mental. No heart in it. No light or delight.
I mean, Sheikh, this is absolutely, if one doesn't have that unquestionable faith, then you're absolutely right. So coming to a little kind of a basic level, Sheikh, and my apologies for that. People living in so-called non-Islamic countries, especially in the West, North America, etc., struggle in with questions of halal and haram and alcohol and non-alcohol and LGBT and all these issues, and many of them are young people. Many of them are people with parents with children. And they do not know how to reconcile what is the real teaching of Islam with what they see in this secular world outside. And they fear for their faith, they fear for their children's faith. They fear that their children will either become dogmatic mullahs with long beards and shalwars up to their ankles, or they will become atheists and go completely the other way. What message do you have for them?
Go to Quran and choose appropriately for you 20, 30, 40 ayahs and live with them for a few months, and you will touch upon the light of transformation. Start with, I did not created you except to perfect your worship. What is worship? Worship is not just standing up and this is screaming and worship is adoration that is unique and exclusive. Adoration of truth, of the eternal light. And the eternal light manifests in every human being as their own soul. Do you know where your soul is? No. Everybody's in the head. What about your heart? As I said, we have not been trained. And through suffering, through questioning, and through grace of Allah, suddenly you say, oh, these are the ayahs I'm going to live by. That's it. Choose 20 ayahs, simple. And spend 20 minutes a day on each, 5 minutes a day. And you will be amazed that you are taking to another zone of not just belief, actually experiencing, inner experiencing. Watch your inner emotions when you see something that you like. Watch your inner emotion when you see a very expensive car or a house or a beautiful person or something. Watch your emotions. Without, just watch it. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Be the witnesser. This is the first quality. The Prophet's quality is described as a witnesser. Inna arsalnaka shahidan. And then comes the good news, mubashiran, that you are a light. You are a divine light. Respect it, honor it, be humble with it. And then after the good news, warning that if you are not tuned to that light, you will enter darkness. Nadhiran. And then after that, calling people to that gift of gifts in your own heart as a living creature. That's why if you kill one human being, you've killed all. We are the same. And the differentiation only in the outer, only in the dunya, clever, more clever. As for the Muslims, we have lost the art of awakening to the light and the delight of it and cheerfulness. It became too institutionalized, too structured. It suited a lot of abusive leaders and paid, if you like, clergies and so on. So they perpetuated the system whose origin were complete in that it was both outer and inner. It was ritual and inner meaning and transformation. So we ended up in this valley. That is why if anybody complains to me, especially Western educated Muslim and so on, I say, well, why don't you go back to a Muslim country? And then they tell you, no, they are worse than the others, so-called kafir. I said, there you are. So you are discovering something is beyond the appearances. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to live well. Everybody wants to be reassured. All human beings want to know their destiny is the best. But they are scared of death. They don't practice it. You know, if you practice near-death experiences every day a few times, then you live this world with full alertness. You don't waste time. You don't gossip. You don't speculate. You don't philosophize a lot of rubbish and speculate. No. Is it or is it not? What's my to do with it? So you live that moment intensely, fully, eternally. That's all. Honest, honest, honest. Accountable, accountable, accountable. And you're awakened. Simple.
Sheikh, this, hearing you, I find it so tragic also. Not what you're saying is tragic, but the fact that the vitality of Islamic thought that was so vibrant in people like Ibn Sina, Ibn Arabi, Khaldun, Mullah Sadra, and now you, is just absent. And the world is dominated by the writings of somebody like Yuval Noah Harari or Richard Dawkins, and who are, atheists, and who's, they have 20 million, 50 million, 100 million books in print. And whereas Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, if you read his book, and I'm not trying to flatter you, but if you read Witnessing Perfection, for example, that you read, and I'm reading it again, and every word is a gem as it unveils the message. And why doesn't Witnessing Perfection is 100 million copies?
Because Allah loves me. Doesn't want me to be distracted by a million entities. Otherwise, I won't have the wonderful time I'm having. The same thing with the people who we have mentioned. Ibn Sina in his own lifetime, what happened? Who discovered the blood circulation system? It was the West, much later. All of the others also. It's the same, Baba. They were spared. What about Ibn Arabi? He had to run away and couch whatever he was saying in many, many, many levels. We're very fortunate now that somebody can say, like I do, that you have divine light in your heart. Is it revered enough? Is it respected enough? Now, at the time of Ibn Arabi and others, they would have been considered blasphemous and so on. So, look, it's difficult. Mullah Sadra, what happened to Mullah Sadra? Mullah Sadra had to run away from Isfahan. He went to a village 50, 80, 90 kilometers in the middle of the mountains, not easy to get to. And there they tiny little mosque, beautiful mosque built for him. That is where his teaching was a bit popular. And eventually, then some other ruler came, said, no, you must come back. But these people were persecuted. What are you talking about? Really? And so also, because we have got now a bit of that, historical thing of Ibn Khaldun and so on, Ibn Khaldun. All what he said is that there is this duality between civilized way of life and the more wild, real, natural way of life, the Hadar and the Badu. So any of the 3 or 4 generations, they exchange. Now we're doing the same thing now in a different way. What he discovered was only one aspect, in the Arabian version of aspect of the cycles. Look at everywhere you find. So many of the rulers and others, 4th generation is gone. They become corrupt and decadent and so on. And on and on and on. The same thing with industry. The same thing with fashions. It comes and goes, and cycles move on, and the center remains ever constant. My own center, your center, ever constant. The nur, the light, the soul is ever constant. Refer to it. Why can't we refer to it? Because we are too occupied. The mind has been trained, cause and effect, and good and bad, more money, more power, more reputation, all of that. Stop it. Care for the real you, which is your own nur. And you find everything else is fine. And you don't want any more power or more fame. The last thing I would want is to have people, really. They cause you nothing other than distraction. And they come up with their all stupid miseries and sufferings and so on. Please take your suffering and go. Don't come. I've been spared. Allah's rahmah upon me is visible. I can't thank him enough for making me obscure. So
Sheikh, I think that then what we're really saying is that in this model world, as there is this challenge for me, and not just as Haider, but Haider the person, is what is real in terms of understanding Islam, Quran, faith, and what are teachings that have been colored by politics and social and cultural event, that one isn't able to differentiate between what is real transformative Islam, faith, belief, and one that is cultural, social, and political.
You can, if you are able to let the light or the torch of your own soul to shine upon the situation.
How, Sheikhna, how?
Stopping the light and the shadows of the nafs or the mind. Stopping your own present judgment. Stop it all. Neutralize it all. Farji al-basar, the Quran said in Surah Al-Mulk. Look back now with insight with your soul. You will find no fault. Right. We have murked it up. We have covered it up because it's too intense. We don't want it. We want this dunya. We want more wealth, more power, more reputation, more this, more. So it gets covered. That's all. And Allah will give you what you ask for. That's what we've been asking for. Outer gloss, reputation, and all of the plastic rubbish which is choking the world. That's it. That's what we want.
And so how does one in this world where there's this onslaught of information coming to me from all forms, the olden days, I would understand it's simpler. Your parents taught you something, your teacher in the mosque taught you something, but today is the internet and there are books and zillions of YouTubers and people are confused. How in all this cacophony of massive noise, how do I find the real teacher like Shaykh Fadhlalla? How do I find witnessing perfection? How do I know this is real and this is fake?
You are given what is appropriate for your overall condition. I don't hear that cacophony. I don't hear it at all. I only hear the birds. I hear all. It's fantastic. I hear the beautiful leaves and seeds falling on this roof. So it's up to you. But you have been, in a way, caught into that web of a promise that cannot be delivered. It is alluring, and it has in its seductiveness. You have been seduced. That's it. You have to suffer. I have been induced. So you have to do it. You have to choose through higher intelligence, will. Slowly by slowly, you'll feel you're protected. I remember years ago when I was beginning to be considered as a teacher or this or that, I thought I can help. And I ended up being inundated by people coming to me with their domestic problem. Two people get together, the first few months, there's a honeymoon, and then soon they say, no, I didn't want that. I mean, small space also. So in a few years' time, they quarrel. So I thought, no, I can help. Stupid, of course. Hopefully one grows. So I decided I'm going to stop all of this. 90% of the questions were, why doesn't my husband do what I want? Why doesn't my wife really worship me? And. So I took one simple formula. When the wife came, I said, look, I know you're unhappy. I know he's unfair. Maybe you can kill him. So that word got out and nobody came to ask. Within 2-3 weeks, finished. People want to continue attack. They want to continue to rule, obsess, make others do what they want. And that changes. Impossible, Baba. Impossible. So I don't hear the cacophony. I hear the music of nature, and I'm already in the garden. So when I am next life, as the Quran says, and there are those who come to this garden of paradise, they say, we have already experienced all of this before.
We have experienced it. Absolutely.
So why? You have to choose, you have to pray, you have to beg, you have to cry, and mercy is there. But we are somewhere else. You're somewhere else, so you say, mercy, mercy. You can't do that, you see. It is darkness and light. The Quran says, this deen, this Quran, to help you by your doings, by your hoping, by your movement, to come out from darknesses to lights. It's level after level. It's an evolutionary process. That's all. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Very kind of you. Mona, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Haider, for asking all those nitty-gritty questions that so many of us have.
Allah.
Clearly, Shaykh Fadhlalla is showing us a way to engage with the Quran much more beyond its outer form, beyond the beautiful recitation, beyond the glorious, mellifluous sounds that alone have an effect on our hearts. Clearly, we have to engage and be real and honest with its profound meanings. I hope and pray that everybody who listened to this engagement today will look at this video again, make a note of those verses, and take up Shaykh Fadhlalla's challenge to choose those 20 or 30 verses and engage with them deeply. See how you are reflecting in them, and those verses of truth and haqiqah are reflecting in your heart and your consciousness. Thank you for the most amazing session.
Honest, and accountable every second. Right now, not tomorrow, right now, honest. Imagine that, know that Allah knows what's going on in your head, in your mind, in your heart. No, finished. So, and if you have somebody we can reveal to and open up, that's even helpful. Say, my teacher knows, my mother or father, somebody. You see, so as you end up being aware of the supreme light in your own heart that knows all. Allah is with you, Allah is in you, Allah's nur is there. So who are you running away from? As you said, take the ayahs that make sense to you, go into it until you go into super sense, until you go into supra sense, beyond the sense, beyond the mind. Good luck to you. Thank you very much, Muna.
Thank you very much, Shaykh Fadhlalla. Thank you, Haider. Thank you all the way from Canada. Thank you, Shaykh Fadhlalla. Well, that's the end of this session. We look forward to more in the future, inshallah. I hope you have all benefited in some deep and meaningful way. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Salam.
Salam.